Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast. I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Richard Culberson. Richard, excited to have you on the show.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Gresh. It's great to be here.
Yes, absolutely. You're doing so many phenomenal things. So, of course, before we jumped into the interview, I want to read a little bit more about Richard so you can hear about some of those awesome things. And Richard is CEO of Moneypenny's North America operations, where his role is to strengthen the organization's rapid growth in the US and boost its plans to grow the North American business both organically and through acquisitions. As the customer communications leader, Moneypenny supports businesses of all shapes and sizes across the UK and US with call answering, live chat, and bespoke intake services. Moneypenny, with over 1,200 people, is proud to have been part of the 100 best companies to work for, be recognized as a great place to work, and be recognized by Forbes Advisor as best answering services in 2023. Moneypenny's group includes award-winning companies Voice Nation, Ninja Number, and Alpha Page. Richard is taking Moneypenny's North America to the next level in terms of expanding its contact centers, teams, and continuing to grow the business. And I was listening to a snippet where he was interviewed in the Metro Atlanta CEO, I think, and I love that he talked about how important it is to have a human-centric business and how important that is to the extension of the work that they do, because they of course work with people and they help support people as well too. And like I mentioned the awesome numbers of the number of people they have on their team, the number of people and how they're pushing things forward. But I read some numbers that they handle over 20 million calls, 21
hmm
for in chats for 21,000 businesses, which is nothing to kind of scoff at. And of course, we had Group Chief CEO Joanna Swash on episode number 919 of our podcast. So super excited to have you on the show, Richard. Are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
No, that's great. That's a mouthful. Hope I can live up to half of it and give some information for the audience.
Hey, you're already living it. So then now we're just trying to capture it so that we can learn more from you. So I guess to kind of kick everything off, let's rewind the clock, hear a little bit more on how you got started, what I call your CEO story.
Yeah, sure. A little bit of background myself. So I'm a reform consultant. I was at Accenture for about a decade. Started off technology consulting, really wanting to understand how things worked, if you will. And then kind of one of the things I fell in love with in my second tour of duty with Accenture was starting to understand how businesses work. So went to business school, went back and joined more of a strategy and a management consulting background. So like I say, I'm a forward consultant, then moved forward into Cox Enterprises, a great private family-owned business that's based in Atlanta on the telecommunications side. Really want to roll up my sleeves and get a little bit more experience actually getting into business. Loved my experience, great business for anybody who works with them, both on the media side, on the automotive side, or on the cable side of the business. But that's kind of where I really loved and fell in love with smaller businesses. So in Cox, it was privileged to get the opportunity to stand up a couple of new businesses, including Home Life, which is a home security and smart home services business. And that's where I really got in love with this idea of growing and scaling businesses, which really brought me up to Moneypenny. Just a tremendous business, got a great history in the UK. We're expanding in the US, both organically and organically, as you mentioned. So product acquisition. We are still in the marketplace with the brand of Voice Nation, as well as Alpha Page. All of those have gone through, brought a lot of tremendous people in place with us and great clients that we work with.
Nice. I absolutely love that and appreciate, hearing, your love for small business, how that fuels you. And I'm sure it definitely helps out as far as you being able to kind of maybe understand and be able to connect with the clients that you all ultimately, serve and make that impact with too.
Absolutely. There's nothing like being able to walk through someone's shoes for a little bit to start to understand. And it kind of takes you out of the clouds and start talking about what really their problems are versus kind of the more esoteric. And here's a great idea. And let me tell you what I could do for you. But if you be able to say, like, I know sometimes you just can't answer the front door, like that's a real problem. So that's where we try to connect and make sure I kind of use the analogy of we are the front door to small businesses. Be able to say we need to be able to represent when your customer walks in, it needs to feel like we're part of your business. And that's respect and you trust. And you put in part of our business to be able to say, when we open up, will we treat your customers with respect? Will we know your business? And how do we have that empathy with everyone to interact with? Because we need to be an extension of their businesses. And you start to really understand that once you've been in their shoes. I'd love to claim to be an entrepreneur, but I'm much more on the scaling side. I just have that respect for somebody who has that passion idea. And this is my baby. Like that's a real privilege. And we have to take that seriously.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. But I imagine, being on that scaling side, still having that, the ability to have rolled up your sleeves, to have that impact, that have those experiences. I'm sure that probably helps out as far as like being able to make sure that you're submitting and probably even articulating the solution that you're providing so that you can all scale and be able to make that impact on a bigger and grander level.
Now, and I think that's kind of one of the things you'll see, and there's a rich history of this, and I'm sure Joanna probably spoke about this with you earlier, of we have to constantly evolve to that. So whether we're talking by sector, so what are the needs of a small law firm or a large law firm? Because we do both small and large business. I like to say that we help small businesses look large by being that front door when they're trying to focus on their core competency, whether that's a dry cleaner, a lawyer, or a plumber. But we also help larger businesses look small by keeping it personal, keeping that home touch. So we don't do the large outsourcing deals. We like to keep it smaller, more personal, and that's our sweet spot. And we think that's how we differentiate.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I love how powerful that is, and I think a lot of times when small businesses are trying to look large, a lot of it is like you said, working on your zone of genius, the thing that you do best, and making sure that you have good partners or relationships or whatever it is, so that you don't have to worry about the rest of those things, and you have that collectiveness. But I love that part about large businesses looking small because I think that human touch, the connection, the feel that a lot of times you get with the one to one, you sometimes may feel like you don't get that with larger businesses. But I love how you were able to bridge that gap. First of all, understand that, and then secondly, to be able to execute on that too.
It's something we have to constantly remind ourselves to. And like I said, evolve, whether it's understanding how the industries that we support are growing and changing or the communication channels that we want involved in. We were kind of born and bred in answering the phones, which everyone says this will change, but people still want to talk to people. But we're also very proud of having live chat and evolving into messaging and different needs. We need to be there for our clients so that we need to be in the channel that the customers want to reach out to them with. So we keep evolving and innovating to make sure we're relevant and building technology that helps that and putting the people in place that love doing it because it might not be something they like doing for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. But it ends up being so necessary for all industries and people that are involved in those industries. So I know you touched upon a little bit of the brands and everything. Could you take us through if you didn't cover anything about like how you're actually serving the clients, how that looks, and what that process looks like when they give you a phone call or even chat with you?
Sure. Very proud of it's something we focus a lot on is that client journey. So I talk a lot about it. So as a client is coming on, how do they learn about us? How do we get them started off on the right foot? And I think we do take a little bit of a different approach in the marketplace. So we are in the market with Voice Nation as a brand, as well as Moneypenny in the US. And slowly we're kind of evolving into that one operating model, one way to work. But we think right now what we've seen is in the past, a lot of small businesses have come to into the Voice Nation brand versus the Moneypenny has been more of a dedicated receptionist. So you know that Sally is your person. Here's that works. So we have a couple different value propositions in the marketplace. But what we do is when you get in touch with us, we do have an inside sales team that basically takes your call and says, what are your needs? How can we best fit that and mold that into that experience? Which then I think one of the things that we had a little bit different is we have a dedicated, what we call an onboarding team. They will sit, and that's kind of that linchpin in the middle that starts to say, what are your business needs? So, as a plumber, you need us 24/7, bilingual, be able to answer, and we can either make that a very specific script. We'll do exactly what you tell us to do, or we'll have it nice and fluid. That's very personal for these businesses and how we do that. So we put that onboarding step to make sure we get that exactly how you want us to sound and how to be a part of your business. And then we take great pride in then running that and operating that. And we have account management to make sure we're constantly tech based and saying, do we need to change this? Do we evolve this? Both reactively to the client's needs and proactively of saying, hey, we see something doesn't look quite right. Wouldn't you like if we do this? So I think that's a little bit different on leaning in proactively to onboarding and setting it up right. So we always come across appropriately, but then checking in and making sure we're evolving with your business as well, because everything's dynamic and changing over time.
Yeah, and I think being able to be locked into that is huge. I love that you said, that phrase, which is seems small, but it's huge by saying this doesn't look quite right. Should we do it this way? And I think anytime you have those relationships, those partnerships, you want to know that of course the things are being done, but you're also paying attention to how things can be improved, how they can, because everything's changing and everything's evolving, and you want to make sure that your service and the way that you're trying to connect with your potential clients and customers or your existing ones is also evolving and changing and improving as well.
No, absolutely. And that's a combination of technology and people trying to make sure we've got a platform in place that can have that customization. It can flex as we need to. We don't take a single approach. But then that's just really most importantly, our people are our product. They're on the phones, they're representing your business. So how we hire, how we train, how we treat those people, even coming down to the office environment that we've created. We take great pride and we've invested in our office in this great, we call it the middle, where we've got food and people can engage and talk. And what are you seeing? What are you doing? How's your weekend? I just firmly think that creates a different culture and a different environment than kind of that legacy content of a call center. We take great pride in being receptionists and be able to part of that and part of a business versus just transactional.
Yeah, I think that makes so much sense. And that's why I love that obviously you have that culture for the people that are on the team. But I love that piece that you mentioned as well, too. Part of that secret sauce is having that onboarding piece, because I think in order to figure out how your, secret sauce works best with their secret sauce, you kind of have to have those conversations and know how you can blend that together. So I love how impactful that, first or maybe even ongoing conversations you have are to that.
Sure, that's I guess it's like all good relationships, right? You've got some gives and takes, and how do we work and how do we evolve, and it's never really fixed. So, and I think that's one of the ways we do a little bit different. Like I mentioned, being a little bit more proactive and keep touching base and building and improving as we go.
Yeah, that's huge. And it's like when you have, like, I guess the Avengers or something, when you have two different superheroes, they're really good at what they do. You guys are really good at what they do. How do we meld our missions together so that we can, make the impact that we ultimately could? So I love that you all do that. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit. And I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or even a habit that you have. But what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Sure. I was thinking a little bit about this earlier. What is it? And I think everyone's a little differently, so I don't like be too prescriptive. But I think the one thing I've found as I've grown up and moved on in my career is that you've got to stay grounded. And you've got to be careful about not being in your own echo chamber. And what I found is as you get more senior in the organization, increasingly, if you're not careful, you can start listening to yourself. You can start listening to people closest to you. So I think, I guess I'll call it a hack is I literally put a calendar reminder in every month. What is the one way that I can challenge myself? Have intellectual curiosity on, did I talk to a client? Did I go in? Actually, one of the best checks I've always had is talk to your spouse, talk to your significant other, or talk to your family. Can you explain what you do? How do you come across when you're talking about it? I think when you challenge yourself, you start talking in simpler terms. And as a former consultant, I know just how bad it sounds when you start talking the consulting language.
Hmm.
So I think it's important to do. So my hack is kind of that first day of the month. I put something in as just a reminder that says, be grounded, get out of your own echo chamber, go out, get out of the office, talk to a client, talk to a client's customers in our case. But it is talk to your family and friends. It's a great sanity check for do you understand what you're doing? Do you understand? Are you changing and evolving the way you need to? And do you have that intellectual curiosity to find out what am I not doing or how could I be better? So that's something that, like I said, there's good days and bad days. I don't always do it tremendously in some cases, but it's something I build on time.
Yeah, I love the practicality of actually having that, as a check marker on your calendar to make sure that you're consistently doing that, because I think it's so easy to continue to kind of go through processes and have that success and continue to kind of, like you said, be in that echo chamber where you're not actually challenging yourself. You're not actually seeing like how things are pivoting or changing, or being able to ask those questions. A lot of times is based because you say you've had those conversations, say, hey, how can we do this better? Can we do this to make this better? But I think by
Mhm.
having that built in, the practicality of it is what allows you to continue to kind of check the temperature, so to speak.
You need that checking in as a trigger, as a reminder sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. And so, what would you consider to be a little bit more of what I call a CEO nugget? It's a little bit more word of wisdom or piece of advice. It might be something you would tell your favorite client, or if you were to hop into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
um, one kind of saying that I talk a lot about team, and I guess it's kind of leadership across the board. It's a little thing that it's be positive, but ask why. So, and it's sometimes I'm good at some points and sometimes a little bit more challenged. But the be positive is assume positive intent, walk in someone else's shoes. If you come across in that approach, and always, no one wants to be around a negative person. Be positive. So if you become that downer, like that will become that. So if you start always coming in, assuming positive intent, how others come in, and you bring that positivity into a conversation, it changes almost every conversation. So I think that's the be positive side of it. But I always say, but ask why. I alluded a little bit earlier to like the intellectual curiosity. Like, why do we do things this way? Why am I asking this way? Why don't I change the way that I can do my behavior? Or just peel that onion a little bit further, and you'll understand a problem, a situation, or an opportunity better. But I think when you bring it all together, that be positive, but ask why kind of is like it's a balance. And I think some people do one side of that equation better than others. Like personally, myself, I as a reformed engineer and consultant, I like that. But ask why comes very naturally to me. But sometimes I need that reminder on be positive. What is that? Assuming positive intent. What's someone's incentives and why they're acting the way they are, and you'll have such a better conversation. So I think that balance and a constant reminder of there. That's the be positive but ask why is something that I always come back to.
Yeah, that sounds so powerful, and I don't know why, but that word that you mentioned earlier, that empathy, really popped up for me because I think you start to see what could be the positive. I think so many times we can have those blinders on or be in that echo chamber, as you mentioned, and we don't necessarily see the other side of the coin. Sometimes that positive side of the coin, but I think if you have that mentality of being positive, but also asking why, sometimes it allows you to kind of what we talked about in the hack is kind of get outside of that comfort zone, maybe flex and look at things from a different vantage point, but have a positive perspective by doing that, which can lead you closer and into a better overall relationship and, of course, goal as well too.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely. One other quick question. I wonder too, like, and being able to continually to like ask those questions and have that kind of space for that. Do you feel like you are able to kind of drill and get even simpler, as you mentioned in your hack, with being able to ask those questions because you have those different vantage points. You're looking at it from a different way. It allows you to be able to articulate it to your wife or spouse or whoever may not necessarily be directly in that industry, but you still are able to simplify because you have been able to look at it from different vantage points.
Yeah, and I think you just keep on building those. I have a genuine interest and curiosity about people. Like, where are they coming from? I've always loved travel. We just came back. We were fortunate enough to go down to Argentina, and you just
Nice.
get it's a different perspective. You just see where people are coming from, and the world just starts to get smaller, and you just start to understand everyone is unique, but at the same time, you start to see some of these themes and start to understand that. And I've always kind of feel the term I use it's a flywheel. Once you start to okay, I understand and appreciate the differences between people, you just want to do more, and it starts building on itself. So kind of like we're talking about, you're never really done. You're never stop on picking up new things and learning new perspectives. But I think once you get in that mentality, it just creates that mechanism for just wanting to learn a bit more, see, have that curiosity, sit down for lunch with somebody. Why are they acting the way they are? What are their problems? How can you help them? Because I think on our best day, we're just putting people in the right place and then getting out of the way.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of the essence of leadership. I said, I think they get the right butts in the right seats from good to great is that whole idea. And I think a lot of times that is, first of all, like having that empathy, being able to kind of understand, have those conversations, and again, get the people in the right place and then kind of get out of the way, not be the
Mhm.
bottleneck.
Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. We're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So, Richard, what does being a CEO mean to you?
I mean, I think we just said it really at the end of the day. See, it's finding a way, connecting with people, and inspiring them, get good people, find people smarter than yourself, put them in the right spot, and then check in with them to make sure they're happy and they're growing. If they're growing and they're engaged and they're enjoying what they're doing, I just, life's too short. People have a lot of options. They can go a lot of different places. But when you start to get a team together who starts to appreciate who they are and they're genuinely enjoying what they're doing, I, everything just falls in place. And I think that's the most important part. Finding those people, making sure you're making those connections across them. And like I said, get smarter people than you and just get out of the way. And then check with them, like, what blockers do they have? How are we in the way? How are we in our own? Because I think people won't naturally challenge themselves. I think it's the other thing you do. Are they stretching themselves? Do they see the strengths in themselves? that's something I've learned, I continue to learn, through the mistakes I've made. Is like, well, you know more than you think you do. So how do you kind of tease that out of people and appreciate the skills they bring to the table, and make sure they're using them and see it in themselves?
Yeah, I think that's so huge, especially from like a leadership standpoint. But words kind of my mind is like kind of experience, and I think whenever you look at a position or even being within that leadership role or being a CEO, entrepreneur, business owner, whatever title we might give, you're creating an experience for the people that are around you. And I think if you have that opportunity to provide them the experience of being able to see themselves sometimes better than they may see themselves, and create that culture, that environment that can allow them to try, and maybe things don't go well, maybe they make mistakes, but still be able to kind of, for lack of a better term, coach them on. You create that experience where they want to be there because there is other options. There are only a number of hours in a day, but having that really great experience allows you to want to come back, feel, ownership and connection to all the things that are doing in the mission that's kind of before them.
Sure. And I think that's generally in life, but also if you're looking at from the people, especially in the business that we're in, the people are so important. And like I said, I think it's always the case, but especially for us, like that is our product, that is our service. This is what keeps us alive and what people value. So I think if we sit in there and appreciate for both our people and also from our clients and the journey they're going through, I think everyone ends up in a much better spot.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I love the culture that you all have, and I almost feel like the people are at the foundation, and you guys have the technology to kind of amplify that. And it's those things working in tandem, but it's not really either or; it's both, and how you can take things to an entirely different level.
Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Richard, truly appreciate that definition. Of course, I appreciate your time even more. So, what I wanted to do now is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional that you can let our readers and listeners know, and of course, how best people can get a hold of you, find out all the awesome things you and your team are working on.
Sure. No, like I said, we are in the market. So if you look at voicenation.com or moneypenny.com, very proudly here to serve. We're looking to meet the needs of all the small businesses that are looking to need services, and so they can focus on what they do best. So I think try to speak the best when we say we have dynamic services and what the needs are. So whether it's a fixed, you need 50 minutes plans and we into answering services, or you need 1,000, 10,000, you just need someone to really take this off of your plate, give us a call. We're flexible. We've got a lot of different ways to approach the market. Just want to understand your needs, and we've got the people in place to help serve those. Like I said, looking to grow and kind of understand more of what all the different industries need. So I think we've got a great team that's ready to serve in that way.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And to make that even easier, we're going to have the links and information in the show notes as well, too, so that everybody can follow up with you and find out about all the awesome things you're doing. And I absolutely love all the things that you all are doing. I love the culture and the impact that you all are having. I almost got visuals of like being like with a tool belt on and having all of these different tools that you have to be able to kind of help serve these clients. But the most important thing is to know exactly where they're trying to go and what tools you have, the strengths and weaknesses, and how to marry those two things. So I love that you all do that, and kind of remind us how important for us to do that as well too, as leaders. So thank you so much, Richard. I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
No, thank you so much. And I'm not hiding. So find me on LinkedIn. I'm out there. Glad to talk to anybody as well. So very pre out there. And thanks for having me, Gresh.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.